Hi, this is Jill from Fabric Garden in Sacramento, California, and today I wanted to show you one of my very favorite Creative Grids rulers. It's called the Cat's Cradle ruler, and it makes a unit that is a half square triangle with one solid side, and the other side is made of two triangles and a square. This is a very common block in quilting, and it can be difficult to make. Oftentimes the point gets cut off, or it's not perfectly square when you're done making it, and then your points get cut off and things are hard. So I wanted to show you, first off, that the ruler has the cutting right on it. So you don't have to remember where you put the instruction sheet that comes with the ruler. It is printed right on there. This particular ruler will make everything from a 1.5 finished block to a 4-inch finished block. And it tells you that you need to cut 2 squares, 2 small rectangles, and 1 large rectangle. And this will make 2 Cat's Cradle blocks. So let me move these aside. The first thing you do is sew the square to the small rectangles. And when you do that, then you will put the squares opposite of each other, put them together, and you will sew your 1/4 inch seam so that they are together. This is what they'll look like when they're sewn together. Pressing is very important on this. When you press, you're going to make a little snip between the seams so that you can always press away from the square. So you can see that by pressing away from the square at all times, I can see the seam stitching on the squares. So now comes some of the magic of the ruler. We are going to mark our sewing lines. So right on the ruler, it says, mark sewing line, place on seam line. So it's a square. I'm going to place the square on my sewn lines, and I'm going to mark my sewing line. And I'm going to flip around, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Place the line on my seam and draw my sewing line. Now I'll take that large rectangle and I will put it right sides together, and I will sew right on my lines. Now, if Carol gives us a close-up here, you can see that by marking the sewing line, I am not going to be cutting off my point. I can see before I even sew that I will not be cutting off the point of that square. So once I sew it, you'll see that I will have 2 of the cat's cradles. So once I sew, I will cut this in half, and I will have 2 units, and these are oversized. So now, if it's not perfectly square, I can make this perfectly square. So again, we're going to look at the markings on the ruler. And so this side of the ruler we used for marking the sewing, and this side we're going to use for trimming. So you can see it's got all the different sizes that the ruler will make, and it has a dashed line to put on the bias seam. So I'm going to take my block. This is the largest size, so I am going to put the square on my square, and the critical part is that the dashed line is on the bias seam. Once I do that, I will take my rotary cutter and I will trim off the excess. Then I will flip the block, not touching how the ruler is. I will lay that line on, and there's a dashed line that goes through to the corner of the ruler. I will slide the dashed line along my bias seam until it matches up with the corner of the block, and I will trim the other two sides. So now, this was the original size. This is it trimmed to perfection. You can see no cutoff points, no wonky blocks. It is all perfectly square. So there is the 4-inch size. Here is the 3.5 inch. There is the 3-inch. There is the 2.5. And here is the 1.5. We all know that when we make small blocks, it is so hard to make them perfect. But look at this little tiny block. It is absolutely perfect. So whatever you're making, your block will be perfect. I'm going to pull this away so you can see my little quilt top under here. This is called Raspberry Stars, and this is every block in this quilt is a cat's cradle, except for the 4 outside corners. Those are half square triangles. But the whole quilt is all the blocks, from the little blocks up farther out to here. These are all cat's cradle blocks. To make this quilt, I did also use the larger cat's cradle ruler. The large one will do from 4.5 to 6-inch finished cat's cradle. Creative Grids has a lot of cut loose press patterns to support the ruler. This is a cut loose press pattern that we keep in stock, and this is batiks with a little bit of cotton background, and we can kit this up for you in any color that you like. There are also 2 books that support the rulers. The Catitude, which is for the smaller ruler, and it has all sorts of patterns in here that use the cat's cradle ruler. It is amazing how different every block looks depending on your color placement. And then the Catitude Extra Large is for the larger ruler. And again, amazing how you turn and twist the blocks and how you place your color gives you completely different looking quilts. This is one of the most versatile rulers in the line of Creative Grids. It's one of my favorite to use because it comes out perfect every time. So if you'd like to try to make something, come on in. We'll answer any questions. We'll help you select fabric. We're here in Sacramento, California, or you can visit us online at www.fabricgardenquiltshop.com. We're also on Instagram and YouTube. Thank you.